It's been a busy week in the Inland Northwest, so let's get you caught up with the KREM 2 News Week in Review. I'm Cody Proctor. Thanks for being here with us. Over the next half hour, we'll take a look back at some of the news you might have missed from the past week. So let's get started with one of the biggest stories from the Inland Northwest.
Tonight, Spokane police officers are investigating a shooting and a stabbing that happened here at the Terrace apartments that left 2 people dead.
I heard a gunshot earlier, and I couldn't tell exactly where it was.
Bruce Van Zant's lived on the South Hill for the past 42 years, across the street from the Terrace apartment complex, where just after 5 o'clock tonight, police raced to the scene. Van Zant says he was just outside his home when he heard what sounded like a gunshot.
The police cars came, and then the fire trucks came. Then a couple of ambos came, and and everybody was pulling their weapons out and running up. So I figured, well, it's time to go in the house.
Spokane police officers say just after 5 p.m., multiple 911 calls came in for a man holding a knife at the apartment complex. As they arrived, more reports came in, this time stating that a man was on top of a woman, and soon after, a gun went off.
When officers responded, they found 2 injured persons in the parking lot. Life-saving measures were performed. Both succumbed to their injuries, and officers are on scene still investigating.
At this point, police aren't saying more about what happened, just that a suspect is detained.
It's really strange because we never had anything like that before.
Van Zant says he hopes other people living nearby, including himself, use the incident as a reminder to be vigilant in their neighborhood.
Well, all it does is just make us aware to be more observant to what's going on around here. That's all. That's the only thing we can do.
As officers continue their investigation, they're asking anyone with surveillance video or any witnesses to call Crime Check. Connor McAvoy, KREM 2 News.
Well, tonight, no one is under arrest in the double homicide here at the Terrace apartments. Spokane police are still investigating. But we have now learned it appears one person with a knife started a series of fights before a bystander shot him. 911 received calls of a male with a knife. Shortly thereafter, while officers were en route, we got a report of the male was on top of the female. We now know that woman wasn't hurt after a tenant pulled her into an apartment to protect her. An SPD press release shows the knife-wielding man then attacked another man near some stairs, stabbing and killing him. Tuesday night, Lieutenant Jay Kernkamp said investigators were tasked with combing through a large scene, including inside at least one unit and the parking lot. There's a lot of moving parts to this investigation and a lot of people involved and a lot of witnesses to interview. Police say the suspect wandered through the complex before attacking a man walking a dog. That man shot and killed the suspect in what police are calling self-defense. Right now, we are still waiting to learn the identities of the 2 people killed. That information is expected to come from the county medical examiner. Shannon Mowdy, KREM 2 News.
It was nearly impossible for rescuers to actually get to where they fell.
Photos from the scene show the type of terrain rescuers ventured into to extricate the bodies of 3 rock climbers Sunday morning.
The victims had to be removed from the mountain by helo.
The Okanogan County undersheriff spoke to us over the phone Monday. They aren't yet sharing the names of those who died, but did say they were ages 36, 47, and 63. One was from Bellevue and 2 were from Renton.
As they were climbing, they did come across several pitons that were already installed in the rock face.
This photo shows an example of a piton. They act as anchors for protecting climbers from falling and are sometimes shared, but not always reliable.
Depending on how long they've been there and where you actually secure them to the rock, yeah, they definitely could fail.
That's what Undersheriff Dave Yarnell says may have happened as the 4 were rappelling from a single piton. They fell about 400 feet.
On an almost vertical section of the mountain.
While the investigation continues, King County's rock climbing community is grieving. A manager at Edgeworks Climbing in Seattle told King 5, "This sounds truly tragic for everyone involved. These are scenarios that you never want to happen in the climbing community since we're a tight-knit bunch." That sentiment echoed by the president of Seattle's Bushwhacker Climbing Club, who said, "Our thoughts and condolences go out to the climbers and families impacted."
We were kind of like ideal couple.
Olha Martinengo is talking about Alex, the man she married and moved from Ukraine to Washington with, building a life in Bellevue.
He fell in love with mountains.
But over the weekend, her world changed. Sunday night, she learned about what happened to her husband.
Police knocked my door and told me that he was gone.
The tragic timeline began with a trip on Friday. Alex and 3 friends made their way to the mountains in Okanogan County.
He texted to me in the evening on Friday that he's going to bed. I put "love you," and it was last message that he read from me.
That's because on Saturday, the climbers were rappelling on an almost vertical terrain when an accident happened.
They used this anchor, but it just broke.
They fell 400 feet. Alex and 2 of his friends died, but not the 4th climber.
I cannot imagine how he survived.
He was hurt, but managed to make the long journey out. He walked in the overnight hours on a snowy, rough route to reach his car, drive to the nearest payphone, and call for help. Rescue teams came in with a helicopter and located the 3 climbers.
He really wanted to give Daniel a better life than he had.
For this mom, it meant telling her 5-year-old son Daniel, who was often by his dad's side, about the terrible accident that took Alex's life.
He wanted to create happy life for us. Yeah, he loved me too much.
She doesn't have a lot of extended family in Washington, but friends have been there to support her. There's even a community fundraiser that's been started to help as she deals with this devastating loss. In the newsroom, Natalie Swaby, King 5 News.
The grizzly bear population in North Idaho is now down by 1.
It's not particularly common, but it is unfortunate and unusual that 3 years in a row now this has happened.
TJ Ross, the regional communications manager for the Idaho Department of Fish and Game, says since 1982, 11 grizzlies have been mistaken for black bears and killed.
Education is king when it comes to this.
Which is why, as of the first of this year, the department is requiring black bear hunters across the state to pass an identification test online.
The bear identification test is one tool in the tool belt for educating the public about how to tell the differences between grizzly bears and black bears.
Ross says size and color are not reliable indicators. Some key differences between the 2 species is grizzly bears tend to have short round ears, a dished facial profile, a prominent shoulder hump, and longer claws than black bears.
If there's any doubt at all in that hunter's mind, they should take a pass.
Jeff Abrams, a wildlife program associate with the Idaho Conservation League, says while the identification test is good in theory, he believes other approaches should be on standby.
And maybe one of those approaches is simply to prohibit hunting in areas that we know we've identified as recovery zones, or in areas that we know bears are actually present, grizzlies.
Right now, there are 6 designated recovery areas from Washington to Wyoming for grizzly conservation, some of which, like both the Selkirk and Cabinet Yaak, have limited males and females.
It would just be a shame to see that progress be diminished or not happen as rapidly when the one limiting factor on achieving those targets is human presence on the landscape.
Welcome back to the KREM 2 News Week in Review. Each weekend, we walk you through headlines from the past week in the inland Northwest.
I'm at the base of Mika Mountain. It's one of a few areas Avista's identified as high risk for wildfires. That's why the power company wants to convert existing overhead power lines on the conservation area to underground.
Preserving beauty like this takes a lot of work.
That's just from this morning. I've been doing this about 5 or 6 days now.
Nels Tafdahl is putting in the time, keeping his backyard pristine.
Here, I do my part.
But litter isn't the only thing threatening the Mika Peak conservation area.
Lots of trees, so any little windstorm can take out a power line and, cause a fire.
Right now, Avista has plans to help prevent this. It wants to bury 2.5 miles of power lines on a portion of the conservation area. The project starts at the peak of Mika Mountain and runs down the north face of the mountain. It's a move Avista says will help reduce wildfire risk. A DNR report previously linked power equipment to the massive wildfire that destroyed the small towns of Malden and Pine City in 2020. The report claims the fire started when a tree branch fell on an Avista power line. Fire investigators even pointed to a faulty security light owned by Inland Power as what sparked the devastating Gray Fire 2 years ago. Avista says moving power lines underground will help prevent wildfires caused by power equipment, reduce power outages, and decrease the need for future tree work, which are all steps Nels believes is worth the time and the work.
Well, you have to protect it because once it's taken away, it's hard to get back.
Upon approval from commissioners, Avista says construction would start by mid-July and continue through the end of August. Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
As we go to break, here's a check of your weekend forecast. Thanks for joining KREM 2 News this weekend. I'm Cody Proctor. Right now, we're taking a look back at some of the news stories from the past week.
Unanimously approved this resolution moving forward.
It's an effort the Spokane School Board unanimously voted for tonight, a $200 million bond to be paid back over the next 5 years.
To provide rich youth experiences for kids that we know is going to translate into their well-being in childhood, but it's also going to help be a catalyst for them becoming a working professional.
SPS Superintendent Dr. Adam Swinyard says putting the bond on the November ballot is a big deal. Voters will now decide its fate, along with a measure from Spokane Parks and Rec. Their $240 million 20-year levy will also head to voters in November. SPS and the city are calling the separate but aligned initiatives Together Spokane.
Well, that's probably the biggest demand right now is space. We're out of courts. We're out of play fields.
Officials believe by combining their efforts, voters will get more bang for their buck, especially for kids. Separately, the bond and levy would cost property owners 31 cents per $1,000 of home value, but together they say it will cost 29 cents and add 30 extra projects that the two couldn't do alone, including replacing aging schools.
As replacing Adams, are over 100 years old. Madison, our oldest Northside school, built in 1949.
An indoor pool with classes for grade school students and a field house with 5 courts for recreational sports in the community are also in the plans. While it all comes down to voters in November, board members, including Swinyard, are excited to move forward with the levy's next steps.
Congressman Michael Baumgartner's first 100 days in office has been anything but quiet. Still, he's already marking a few milestones as a freshman member. Work has just begun for Representative Michael Baumgartner on Capitol Hill. His first 100 days marked a few firsts, including
I was the first freshman in the 119th Congress to get a bill across the House floor.
He's also now halfway through his goal of holding town halls in all 12 counties in his district. You may remember they started off a bit rocky. This is how the Spokane crowd reacted at Bombgartner's Whitworth University Town Hall. Not everyone agreed with his stance on various issues that aligned with the Trump administration.
I think nobody's surprised that some of the Democratic base or their party wants to use these town halls as a method for protest and to try to make a political act out of it. And that's okay too. I mean, that's part of the American political systems. I just want to make sure that the town halls are conducted in a way that's safe and that people have the opportunity to express their ideas and to listen to each other.
On Capitol Hill, Baumgartner is proud of Congressman forces work on securing the southern border.
You can't be a sovereign country unless you control your borders.
He's a U.S. citizen.
In recent months, Spokane County has seen an increase in ICE and Border Patrol activity. Videos of these arrests going viral, including this moment when agents smashed in a truck window.
Get out! Get out!
Bombgartner believes Washington state's sanctuary law forces federal agents to take extreme measures to make these arrests.
Right now, ICE should be able to go into the courthouse, and when that person is getting released from the county jail, they could be there to apprehend him, process him, and get him out of the country. But with this crazy and dangerous Washington state law, this sanctuary state law, that means that instead of doing that there, ICE then has to get him released. Then there's going to take more resources to find where he is. And then when they go to arrest him, it's going to take 6 to 8 guys in body armor and going to be much more dangerous for the individual, much more dangerous for the family.
So do you think the current protocols adequately protect individual rights during these arrests?
Well, I believe so. I mean, you'd have to look at each individual case, but if someone's a violent offender that's been dangerous and is in the country illegally, I certainly, first and foremost, care about the law enforcement officers are going to arrest them.
Looking ahead to the next phase of his term, Bombgartner says he's focused on protecting eastern Washington's dams and agriculture and supports schools and education.
Now, these are highlights from my conversation with Representative Bombgartner. You can watch the full interview right now on KREM 2 Plus and our YouTube page. Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
Welcome back to the KREM 2 News, a week in review. I hope you're having a great weekend. Let's get back to one more story you might have missed this past week.
As Kootenai County continues to boom with growth, the Panhandle Affordable Housing Alliance is making dreams happen for local workers.
There's nothing more comforting than having a place to call home.
It's pretty exciting for me. I've never had property before. I've never had land before. I can't wait to put my garden plots in the back.
Nathan Arman is an IT specialist in Post Falls. Now he is getting the house he never thought was possible after Coeur d'Alene Regional Realtors reports that the median home price in Kootenai County has increased over 4% since last year.
Now at $1,500 a month in rental, and I would much rather have that be going towards a mortgage than continuing to just eat its way out of my pocket.
Nathan is one of 15 first home buyers, a part of an initiative led by the Panhandle Affordable Housing Alliance.
Welcome to Miracle on Britain. We are standing on a fully developed 28-lot development that we purchased to build very specifically home ownership opportunity for our local hardworking citizens.
Lyons says before COVID, 75% of people could afford to buy a home. That number has since dwindled.
Today, only 20% can afford to buy a home, and we refuse to accept that only the wealthy can buy a home in Kootenai County.
The goal of this development is to keep local working citizens in Kootenai County, like the sheriff deputy and medical receptionist who plan to live right on this lot.
Project officials say owners still build equity, but thanks to deed restrictions and a special Fannie Mae program, when it's time to sell, the home can't be sold at full market price. That way, it stays within reach for the next medium-income buyer.
It's something we always hoped for and prayed for and never knew if we were ever going to get there.
You're gonna have to go furniture shopping.
I know. I'm not.
That's the next part.
Yeah.
We are told that 13 more homes are planned to be built on Miracle on Britain, and that construction is planned through next spring. I'm reporting here in Post Falls, Regan Gallo, KREM 2 News.
Keep it here for more news and weather updates throughout the weekend. And don't forget, you can watch our latest newscasts anytime on your schedule on KREM 2 Plus. Download and watch right now for free. I'm Cody Proctor. Thank you for watching KREM 2 News Week in Review.